hockey fans, the Minnesota Hockey Connection Show is on the air. We're in downtown Duluth, PACT-TV Studios, and it's Monday. What is it? Oh, it's Cinco de Mayo. It's May 5th. And boy, I don't get too many guests that know a lot about the American Hockey League, which is the minor league clubs of all the National Hockey League teams and that. We got Chris Peters. He's the contact manager for Flow Hockey. Welcome, Chris.
Jerry, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit your job title and what you do and what is Flow Hockey?
Yeah, so I've been at Flow Hockey for 3 years now. We're part of the larger company Flow Sports, which is a streaming service that we have a lot of hockey. We have a lot of other sports as well. But in hockey, we have the American Hockey League, USHL, ECHL, Atlantic Hockey America. We have, a number of junior leagues in Canada, and then a lot of amateur hockey from Canada and the United States as well. So it's that for them, I do more of the editorial and visual content that's not the live games. So we obviously have the live games, but my job is more to bring content to people, and I cover a lot of different areas. Mostly anything beneath the NHL is kind of what we try to cover. So that starts at the AHL, but obviously college hockey, junior hockey, the NHL draft, things like that. Those are kind of our coverage areas, and we do a wide range of visual and editorial content throughout the year. So I'm the content manager, so I kind of run that side of it, and then I also produce a lot of content myself with being an NHL draft analyst and a guy that's kind of been around prospects for a long time. That's something I still am really passionate about, and so it's been great to do that here at Flow. And it's been an exciting couple of years. We've really been growing a lot and seeing a lot of people get to know us better. So I'm hoping that become a really big part of the hockey community here in the next few years as we continue to add leagues and add different things to stream. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun these last couple of years.
You must compete with Live Barn, huh?
I guess, yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I think that Live Barn is more of a, more community-based arenas and more
right.
for parents and things like that. We're trying to, obviously engage fans on top of that. Certainly some of the leagues that we carry, most of the people that are subscribing are parents of players or families of players and people within those leagues. But I'd say the vast majority is tried to gear towards fans. So having the AHL, we get a lot of NHL fans that are trying to check in on their farm teams, or if it's a USHL team, the nice thing about Flow is you can say one of your players graduates to college hockey, plays at somewhere like Bentley or Holy Cross, and they'd have an opportunity to watch those players as they progress through the ranks, and then maybe those players go on to the ECHL or the AHL. So it's a really good way to follow a player's journey in their development as well.
Yeah, I follow a lot of the Minnesota players that go up to the American Hockey League, and sometimes a lot of them go up and they play a couple games in the National Hockey League and come back down. But it's still good that they're still in the mix and they can be full-time up in the National Hockey League. So what are the chances that these kids that play in the American Hockey League get to the National Hockey League?
Yeah, well, I think the vast majority of players that play in the league, I think it's somewhere around 87% of the NHL players in the league have at least touched the AHL at some point. It's a very small group of players that don't play there. So I'd say that the vast majority of players are going to play in the AHL. The one thing that is for sure, it seems that every single goalie will first play in the AHL before they go to the NHL. I think there's only one starting goalie in the NHL right now that didn't first play in the AHL. So, and that's Sergei Bobrovsky, who played in the KHL. So, it's really interesting to kind of watch these players as they go through. And the thing about the American Hockey League is it's such a great level of hockey. And some of these guys, maybe they, like a former gopher, Travis Boyd, had an NHL career, played a lot of games in the league, won a Stanley Cup with Washington. Now he's with the Iowa Wild. He's within the Minnesota Wild organization. And veterans like that, can be a huge help to the younger guys that are trying to make their way to the big club. So you're going to see a lot of these guys. Maybe they get a couple of games. Some of them are just starting their careers. But, guys like Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi and others really cut their teeth in the AHL before they made the jump to the big club.
Talking about goalies, didn't Hershey win the Calder Cup a couple times now?
And they sure did, yeah.
And Hunter Shepard was the goalie.
Yeah, and he's still their goalie, and he also had a chance to be up with the Capitals a little bit more this year. So he was on the bench when Alex Ovechkin scored his record-setting goal with the Caps, but he's back with Hershey now. They're going for a third straight Calder Cup. So as you guys know in Duluth, when Hunter Shepard is in the playoffs, he's a tough guy to beat, but right now, Hershey's actually down 2-1 in their series, so they're going to have to battle back a little bit. But as always, Hunter's been a big factor in keeping them competitive in games.
Well, it's hard to repeat in any sport a championship, and they did it twice. They got 2 championships in a row there. So maybe, you never know. But going back to Flow Hockey, how do people sign up for that, and how much does it cost to see all these games, stream all these games?
Yeah, so Flow Hockey, you can go to flowhockey.tv. We also have a connected TV app and a mobile app, Flow Sports. You go on the Flow Sports app. But flowhockey.tv is the best place to go to sign up for the hockey content. If you do sign up for a subscription, you don't just get our hockey content, you get all of our sports, which includes things like wrestling, racing, and a lot of others. We have a lot of people that subscribe for one reason and find a lot of other reasons to have value in the subscription. Our subscriptions are in the United States $30 a month or $150 for the annual, which basically brings that monthly fee down to $12.50. So, it's an opportunity. If you're a hockey fan in particular, it makes a lot of sense to get the annual package because we have games basically from August to June. So you're basically really only missing July, and really we actually have games in July sometimes on there as well. So it is well worth the annual subscription. It's a great way to watch the USHL, AHL, ECHL, college hockey. We should have a really good slate of non-conference games in the Atlantic Hockey America as well. So, you might see teams like Denver, St. Cloud State, things like that on our platform as well. So definitely advise getting the annual package. It's $150 up front, but it brings that $30 fee per month down to $12.50. I think it's well worth it. And
they just go to flowhockey.tv, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And it'll bring you right to the sign-up page.
Hey, do you archive your game? So let's say they missed it and they can go back on it?
Yep, every game is live and on demand, and I'm not sure exactly how long it stays on demand, but we have games going back a few years now. So, so you definitely can go back and see some of the other things. We've streamed a lot of different leagues over the years as well, but hopefully we'll have even more in the next season with new leagues coming in. Yeah, it's a great resource, and we're really lucky that the technical people are as good as they are, and we're able to keep those archived games for quite some time.
Yeah, I'll put that on my personal Facebook page because on my Minnesota Hockey Connection page, Facebook has done something where I can't share stuff and I can't move it over. It's just weird how things change, and I'm not a tech person, but I'll put that on my personal with this show when I put it up later on this week. So that's a great price, really, if you love hockey. Go back on everything and all these teams and there's back here in Duluth, all these Minnesota players on all these American Hockey League and USHL players.
Exactly. And I'll tell you what, we had this season, when this season's over, we'll have streamed 22,000 hockey games. So that's a lot. That's a lot of hockey.
Do you have a play-by-play guy mostly in all these games?
So the way it works for us is in most cases, we're accepting the feed from the team. So like each team has their own broadcaster, each team has their own production staff. Some teams have elaborate productions where it's multi-camera. Some have maybe just a single camera. But a lot of, in a lot of cases we have, especially for the AHL, it's almost a full television broadcast with the broadcaster of that team. We do carry both home and away streams for most games, depending on if the team has a traveling broadcaster. So you can really see the same game with the broadcaster of your choice on that one. And so those people are typically paid by the teams and not by Flow. We're taking their feed, they're kind of producing it, and we're putting it out. So that's pretty much how it works in almost all cases. And so I think that's the other kind of thing, is it allows us to have a huge reach to have that. So it's basically us taking the feed and putting it out to the rest of the public.
Well, the streaming will be a lot better probably that way too.
Yeah, it is. I think, for us, it's not all centralized in terms of where the production's coming from. It allows, them to kind of run the broadcast the way they want to broadcast it, and off of their, every team that works with us has to have a minimum standard for the internet connection. So, we're able to get those games through, and and we also have a full technical staff on our side that is constantly monitoring games, making sure that they're going smoothly. Sometimes things break, sometimes they go down, but our team is usually working really quickly to try to get everything back up.
That's great. That is a good price, and $12.50 a month if you do the whole year. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I love hockey, and I wish I can stay home and watch it. I'm always at live games.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the great thing is if you do miss it, then you can just catch that archive and never be far from the game.
Okay, we're talking to Chris Peters. He's a contact manager for Flow Hockey. Boy, have you been watching the Stanley Cup?
Absolutely, yeah. I was watching the Winnipeg game last night and just absolutely stunned by the way that one ended, and it's been awesome. It's so fun to watch. I was at the Under-18 World Championship, so it was a little bit harder for me to watch some of the games. But after every game I was done with, we were going to find a place that had the game on TV. And I'll tell you what, we're in Dallas and Frisco, and so every TV. It was never hard to find hockey down there. Everybody was pretty dialed into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it was awesome.
So I got a new rule. From high school. Stop all the regular season in high school, juniors, college, and pro, National Hockey League, and just go to the playoffs. I mean, the game changes so big when the playoffs start in all those classes of hockey. It's just...
it's incredible. I mean, every single level that you see, the intensity, the physicality, the speed, I mean, it just seems like everything's ramped up. And we see that too with the AHL. I saw that at the Under-18 World Championship. I mean, if there is a title on the line, it just seems like everybody's so much more engaged and ramped up. And I agree. Sometimes I think the hockey season is too long. Let's just get to the playoffs a lot quicker.
Yeah, but it was kind of being growing up in Duluth that we had Winnipeg has two Hermantown kids, and they had Duluth East kid playing, and then they had two other Bulldogs, UMD Bulldogs, that were there. So there's 5 Bulldogs that were playing in that game last night. Justin Falk and Iafallo. And then, like I said, the two Piant and Sandberg and Toninato. And that was just fun to watch that game, man. The hockey is so great. And the night before, I mean, I can't believe Colorado got rid of that Finlander.
It ended up biting them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was one of the worst. Something must have been going on at Colorado where something wasn't working out. But whatever. I mean, that and Suter and Parisi contract are the two biggest things. I just shake my head. Yeah. So what's your favorite level of hockey?
I mean, I'd say that, my favorite to watch and cover is definitely college hockey. I mean, I grew up in Chicago in the 90s, so we had UIC there. That was the first team that really exposed me to college hockey when I was young. And, so it was great. I'd be able to see, Michigan and Notre Dame and Michigan State kind of coming in there and playing UIC. And, that was the first exposure to it. And really, I think over the years, it's a completely different vibe, where you got the pep band, you've got the student section, you've got, just kind of the energy of a college campus. And I think that changes things. I mean, I love all levels of hockey. I really enjoy what I do and having a chance to see it. I think seeing junior hockey and everything else, but there's just something about the way that college hockey is, the competitiveness, the speed, the physicality of it. There's a reason that a lot of people are kind of calling it more of a hybrid between junior and the AHL or NHL, where it allows players to kind of have this experience. And so, because the players are a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, the games are a bit cleaner than what you would see at junior hockey. And then I think, they're very well coached teams. There's a lot of talent and there's a lot of players that are on their way to the AHL or to the NHL. They're playing college hockey, high picks, guys that are going to go number 1, number 2 overall. It's pretty incredible to watch, and to see that level of prospect in college hockey over the last several years has made it even more fun for me.
Well, talking about college hockey, there's a big change. I mean, not the transfer portal, not the NIL. That really hit the colleges pretty hard. But major juniors coming to the USA, they can go to college now. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so, I think it was going to happen sooner or later, no matter what. I think that with NIL, the transfer portal, different things like that kind of changed the game. It didn't seem like it was going to be the right move to continue to bar those players, because the vast majority of major junior players are not getting NHL contracts. That's the thing that we kind of forget about, is that those players were kind of locked out of college hockey, and they had other options. They could go play in the ECHL, or they could go play youth sports and different things like that. But it was becoming harder and harder to justify, when players are getting paid in colleges, that these players are professionals and shouldn't be allowed in. So I thought it was going to happen sooner or later anyway. I don't know that I thought it was going to happen this quickly, but it's been very fascinating to watch, because I think that what we've, for all the reasons that I just talked about loving college hockey, the players that are playing major junior are seeing other things, other benefits to it. And I think the benefits they're seeing is that, if you go to a Big Ten school, or, schools in the NCHC or Hockey East, where hockey is a prominent sport in their school, they're operating with, huge budgets. There's nutrition, there's strength and conditioning training, there's fewer games, so there's more practice time. It's all conducive to a kind of finishing school to get to pro hockey and to get to the next level. So you're going to see a lot of kids that play major junior up until they're 18 years old, and then come over to college hockey for that last little bit of a boost before they go to pro hockey. There's still some things that'll have to be sorted out, and I think that players can play in major junior that have signed NHL contracts. They can't do that in college. So there'll still be a number of players that just simply won't have the eligibility to play college hockey. But it is going to significantly change the dynamic for teams. And I think everybody's going to be learning this on the fly. And there are going to be some messy parts to it. There's going to be, some teams are certainly going to get a lot better than others at getting the right players. And maybe it creates another bit of a gap between certain teams. But I do think ultimately the end product will be a better version of college hockey, because the player pool is now twice as big, if not more. And that allows teams to potentially recruit and get more competitive quicker if they're making the right decisions in recruiting. So I do think this is going to be a net positive for college hockey. I think the rest of the landscape is going to have to sort itself out, but I'm very fascinated to see where it goes. And I think ultimately, is it going to be great for all the players? No. I think that there's a number of players that would have played college hockey that aren't going to have that opportunity now, which I don't love. But at the same time, I do think the product will improve as a result.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Minnesota base because I do like 200 high school games, and then I follow all the Minnesota kids in the juniors and colleges, and most of the D1 colleges in Minnesota have a lot of Minnesota kids on them. But talking to a lot of people, a lot of them are experts, and they think it's going to hurt community hockey in Minnesota because they're going to be coming down here and recruiting like crazy these young kids. And plus they think the USHL will change big time. What do you think?
I think there's going to be changes, yeah, and I think it probably is going to impact junior hockey first more than I think it'll contribute to changes in community hockey. I mean, the thing about Minnesota, I think still it protects them a bit from this, is that, really major junior was not a path that most Minnesota kids were taking. There's very few on an annual basis that are going that direction. I think that's a cultural thing, and I think that will continue. I think that kids that want to stay will stay. I do think that there is going to be a number of players that now have different options available to them that will explore those options and make the decision that's best for their development. And I think that that's really ultimately what every player should do if they are on an NHL track. They have to make some tough decisions sometimes about what's best for them and what's the best fit for them. Some players are going to benefit from that, and some players are probably not going to make the right decision and maybe extend themselves a little bit more. I do think this is going to have an impact on the USHL. I think that they're going to have a harder time competing for some of the players that they have typically gotten. Like we saw Macklin Celebrini and Adam Fantilli and Owen Power all play for the Chicago Steel. I think now that those players can retain their college eligibility and play closer to home, that would probably end up being their preference, playing in the OHL or in Celebrini's case, the WHL. So that's something that will potentially impact the USHL. I don't know that they'll get the same caliber of high-end player like a Fantilli, like a Celebrini, those kinds of guys. But ultimately, every player is going to be presented with a lot of new information. They're going to have to figure out what's the best path for them. And I think the paths that exist are proven. The Minnesota path works for a lot of players. The major junior path works for a lot of players. The USHL path works for a lot of players. It's all about picking the right fit for you. And so I think that's the vision that everybody's going to have to kind of sell is we're going to provide this, that, and the other thing for you. These places won't. You have to decide what you value most, and that's going to be the real challenge that coaches and administrators and general managers and everybody else are going to have to figure out. Right.
Boy, a lot of hockey.
Yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
We're talking to Chris Peters. FlowHockey.tv is where you go and get a lot of information, and if you want streaming of any league in the pros, Eastern Coast Hockey League, the American Hockey League, USHL, and there's a few more. It's only $150 a year. I mean, if you love hockey, that's the place to go. Okay, the draft's coming up. You were just down in the World U18 tournament in Dallas area. What do you see in these young kids? Is it a good year? Is it a normal year?
I would say it's a down year. I'd say that it's not as deep. This is probably one of the weakest American crops for the draft, and that was kind of shown by the team that they put out there this year. It's there just not as many high-end NHL prospects on that team as there normally would be. That's kind of been known for a couple of years that it seemed like for whatever reason 2007 birth year was not going to be as strong in terms of the overall talent. And so I think that we definitely saw that was the case with that team. But that was also the case of a lot of the other countries. Like Finland might not have a player drafted until the third or fourth round.
Wow.
So that's really
shocking.
A down year for them. Yeah, it's really shocking. And they didn't even play for a medal. They got bounced in the quarterfinals by Sweden very easily. Struggled against pretty much everybody. Even I think they lost to Slovakia in a shootout. So, there were a lot of things there that, I think were alarming. Canada is not struggling as much as everybody else seems to be. They had a lot of players that I think will be drafted in the first round over the next two drafts. They won the tournament. They beat Sweden. Sweden was also very good, but, they ended up running into a Canadian team that just kind of rolled over them. We kind of knew throughout this year, like, there's no Celebrini or Bedard or McDavid type in this draft. And then beyond that, there's just not a lot of depth. So I think that there's a lot of teams, NHL teams, that are kind of looking, and I think you'll see a lot of players that are re-entries, guys that are in their second year or third year of draft eligibility get picked this year, mainly because the other options just don't look as strong. So I do think that we're going to see, a number of second-year eligibles, guys maybe that played college hockey this year, guys that are playing an extra year of junior. I think they'll have a chance, which is good for them. But yeah, I think it speaks to how shallow this draft class is.
Yeah, I was thinking the same way. I went out to the Fall Classic, and you were out there, and I thought the U18 team wasn't as strong. And then the North American Hockey League had their showcase, and the 17 team was there, and same thing. So, okay, we got 2 minutes, Chris. This is Chris Peters from flowhockey.tv. And last question. You do a draft, a mock draft. How do you do that with putting all those players? I can't even get 20 Minnesota kids in order or something. And I see them all the time.
It's not easy. I think it gets harder every year because the hockey world is so spread out, and there are players in so many different leagues that you do have to track. I think the biggest thing that I do is, I obviously am trying to use as much of my own evaluation as possible. Everything being on video now makes it a lot easier to see more players. So, you try to do that. I think the biggest thing that I tell people is, the way I do it every year is I have to learn from past mistakes. And then the only way to get better is to make those mistakes. So I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to have the exact right order. I'm just trying to have what I feel is right in that moment. And, I think I've been right enough times to be trusted as a source for that. But, it's a difficult job. I think every year it gets even a little bit harder, but I enjoy the challenge of it. I enjoy kind of trying to place all these players in the right spots, and it's been a lot of fun to do it for all these years. And this year maybe not as fun as some of the others because the talent isn't as strong, but it's still pretty good.
Well, Chris, we got to have you back on the show, and sorry we have to end it now. The Minnesota Hockey Connection welcomed you today, and hey, I want to thank PACT-TV and the studio producers, Sean, Liz, and Jim, and we'll see you at the rink. Thank you, Chris.